So on that point, we saw all these slides about the financial situation. We heard about the pension bond. What is your assessment of the city's fiscal health overall at this point?
Yeah, I think there are major concerns, right? Like, I think that what we've seen, and as I've been diving in with the team kind of in transition, the reality of salaries and collective bargaining is a real hit. I mean, it's 20-ish, probably a little bit more. I think the slide said 40 million. Maybe that included the schools, but that's a significant increase in salaries, and like that's not in itself a bad thing, right? I think about the fact that 10 years ago we had so many employees making under $40,000. That's a problem, right? We as a city really need to philosophically check ourselves and say, is that okay? And especially, sort of the vantage point that I've come from as a public health professional, looking at, what does it take for people to be healthy? What does it take for people to have a sense of well-being? And no matter what health outcome you're looking at, they all tie to income at the end of the day. And so I think part of how we prioritize where money is invested has got to look at, what do our frontline folks make, and can they actually have living sustainable wages? So I don't want to blame this on unionization, because I think that has done some good things for the salaries of particularly low-income wage earners. But it is a reality that we're going to have to work into the broader financial picture, and I think that if we're going to continue to support low-income wage earners, we have to continue to really drive economic development and actual growth, population growth in the city, if we're going to be able to match those growing needs.
I was struck by that slide that David put up about the change in pay bands over the last decade. I think everybody would probably agree it's a good thing that nobody's making less than $40,000 a year, because that's basically a poverty wage in this day and age. But what are your thoughts on the growth at the top? I think there's probably some more mixed opinions on that. Is it reasonable, strike you as reasonable, that 1 in 5 city employees makes 6 figures?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd love to see what the county comparisons are, because ultimately it's a question of competition, right? Like, and if we're way out of line with where the surrounding, Winter, Henrico, and Chesterfield are, then I think, yeah, we probably do need to look at it. At the same time, I would say that it's a harder place to be, right? I mean, it is. I just think about my wife's experience as a Richmond public school teacher. It is a harder job in the city of Richmond than it is in our surrounding counties in many ways. I think about our police officers, and just the substance of their work day to day is very different in the city. And over time, that's starting to change. We're seeing poverty move out into the counties. That sentiment is going to continue to evolve as the population of the city evolves. Yeah, I mean, I think, one, I want to see the comparisons, because this is about competition, and if we're going to get the best people, money is a part of that. And then we're also competing with the private sector anyways, right? Like, if we actually are gonna build the best team and get out of the rut that we have been in as city government for decades, we've got to invest in that. And so I'm interested to see what the comps look like, and on its head, it doesn't shock me, but again, if Henrico is like half of that, then maybe we should dig in.
So affordable housing was a major topic on the campaign trail. We saw those numbers about how many Richmonders are struggling to afford rent or paying a huge proportion of their income on rent. We know, average home prices have gone up dramatically over the last couple years, but affordable housing is also not a new topic. The city has been aware of that being a problem for a while now. What do you see as the most immediate steps you can take coming in as a new mayor to ease that housing crunch that so many people are feeling?
Yeah, I think it is the very thoughtful and intentional development of the land that we have. We talked a lot about it on campaign trail. Again, from the public health perspective, the link between stable housing and health and well-being has been just incredibly clear over the last couple of decades. Yeah, I think there will be a clear look at what land the city has control over, and that's the city, Richmond Redevelopment Housing Authority, the school system, and how do we bring those actors to the table to help devote some of that land to the building of affordable housing. As I've talked to many of my developer colleagues over the course of the campaign, the process of actually getting a shovel in the ground, getting a project moving forward is really challenging with the city, with the lack of coordination that happens inside of city government when you need planning and development and DPU and DPW, and they all report through different silos, and that adds months, if not longer, to projects. So I think there's real work that we can do internal to our city structure and process to actually make it easier for our developers to get a project off the ground quicker. And that is true for both market rate housing, which we need more of, and the more housing we have in the city and the region, the more that will help moderate the increase in prices. But then we've got to make real investments and provide incentives for affordable housing. So we've talked a lot about tax abatements as one pathway to do that. And I think the one thing I talked a lot about on the campaign trail was watching some of our regional colleagues just use more sophisticated capital stacks, right? They're bringing money from their Economic Development Authority. They're bringing more national investors, community development financial institutions, and others to the table, and building large financial stacks to be able to cap rental rates at more affordable rates. So we have a really detailed plan, and now that I'm starting to pull out of this water situation, we've got to figure out how do we organize and prioritize which ones we can do in the near term.
All right, we're almost out of time, so I'll start bringing this to a close. But I think it was Bill who said earlier that this job should not be political. You should just be an administrator. That reminded me of a question that's been on my mind ever since covering your campaign. There was just a huge range of opinions from people I talked to about what your own politics actually are. A lot of your supporters felt, you are a true blue Democrat. Some of your critics said, what kind of Democrat works for Governor Glenn Youngkin? You might be a secret conservative. I talked to one libertarian-leaning voter who said he liked you precisely because you seem to be an independent thinker who doesn't fit neatly into the two-party system. Mm-hmm. So how would you describe your political identity, and should that matter in a job like being mayor?
Yeah, I mean, the structure we've created, it clearly matters, right? You don't get elected without a political process. I have spent the vast majority of my career trying to maintain political independence, right? And to really be a subject matter expert as a physician, as a public health doc. And that has served me well in many ways, right? Like, I don't think that I would have had the opportunity leading the Richmond City Health Department to then come over and merge the Richmond and Henrico Health Departments at a time where Henrico was more conservative, right? I don't think I would have had that opportunity if I was, really politically charged in the way that I managed that job. Similarly, I initially worked in the Northam administration. I don't think I would have had the chance to bridge over and do good work in the Youngkin administration had I been out there with my politics. Now, people have seen both the work that I've done and the investment that me and my family have made, and the things that have been most important to us have been caring for the vulnerable and my public health perspective on really driving health equity and racial justice and racial healing are the things that bring me to this work. So a lot of my political positions have been clear, through my work, and so, this job is a political job in terms of how you get into it. I'm a Democrat. That's been clear. But I'm the kind of Democrat that can work with both sides and sees the importance and the value of working with both sides. And now, as the executive of the city, right, there are places where politics matter, right? Like my ability to navigate the administration, to build relationships with state legislators, to work with our federal partners, there's a political lens that I will need to be savvy about in bringing resources to the city. But as the chief executive of the city, it really doesn't matter, right? Like the work is how do we lift up the poor, the vulnerable, and ultimately in doing that, we actually create we create a better circumstance for everybody who lives in the city.
So I know you've only been in the job for a few weeks, but are you thinking this is going to be a 4-year deal for you, or are you going to run for re-election, and is this going to be a full 8 years?
Listen, I think that it would be naive to think that you can do what the city needs done in a 4-year term, right? Like, I really would love to be here for the long haul, and do it, and give as much and do as much and help move our city forward as much as I can. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't think I have any hesitation about saying, like, if I'm doing a good job and the people want me here, I would absolutely love to be here for 8 years.
Well, Mayor Avula, thank you again for thank you for taking the time to be here with us today. We really appreciate it, and I think we all hope it's smoother sailing from here on for you, and we'll be seeing you around City Hall.
Thanks, Graham. Thank you all.